So it's been 2 years since I made this gem, single-handedly pissing off the entire line gun fanbase, whoops. And since making these videos, my mindset has definitely changed on some of these guns. I mean, come on, I was a nub back then. Hell, I placed a flamethrower up there with the pulse rifle for God's sake. Clearly I was just a moron. The original ranking was based on me playing the game once on normal difficulty. As such, some of these guns don't really translate to Zealot too well, while others definitely do. So as well as just being a better ranking of all the guns now that I've played the game more than once, consider this a formal ranking of all of the guns from a Zealot difficulty perspective. Alrighty, let's get started. So the worst gun in the entirety of Dead Space 2 is... I fucking hate it. No, but seriously, it's the Rivet Gun. This gun had so much potential, man. It's honestly a really cool gun, being that it's the only pistol in the game, bar the plasma cutter, of course, and also it's a DLC weapon, so unless you're playing on the PC where you get all the DLC for free for some reason, it's actually sort of rare. It was also a pre-order bonus, but I don't actually know anybody who owns the pre-order Rivet Gun, so this gun is basically a shitty version of the plasma cutter that does less damage per hit for some reason, isn't hit scan, and has a secondary fire that's basically just throws glitter at the enemies. All this gun really needs is a damage buff to its primary and secondary fire, and it might not actually be that bad. A nice balance between the pulse rifle and the javelin gun, maybe. As it stands, each rivet only does as much damage as a single pulse rifle round, which is mental considering you can have 175 pulse rounds in a magazine for good reason. It's a fucking minigun. These damage tables mean that the Rivet Gun is literally the weakest damage per second gun in the game, although sometimes it doesn't feel like it. And having a secondary that is no better just forces this gun to be in the mega bin. Its secondary wouldn't be that bad if you got to fire them for free, but it costs another rivet for each rivet you set off, which makes it just a rip-off version of the javelin gun that does less damage. I will say that doing a Rivet Gun only run was surprisingly challenging and definitely a unique experience to its credit. You can't really kill the first tripod very well, so you've got to run around punching its tongue and stasising it, and it's honestly, it's a lot of fun. But other than challenge runs, there's really no reason you'd ever use this thing. Number 10, the Ripper. God, this thing is so loud. My opinion on this discount buzzsaw hasn't changed one bit. These enemies damage you by stabbing, stop going near them with chainsaws. The ranged attack is basically worthless too. It does similar damage to the line gun's primary fire, and we all know how mega shit that is, and its primary fire is just a tinnitus simulator. It does kill things pretty fast, granted, but it literally steals your ears to do it. It's also the only gun in the game that requires you to be right next to the death zombie in order to hit it, which in itself would be fine if you could guarantee stun locking people like the pulse rifle can, but sadly it's not always a guarantee with each damage tick, meaning if you miss just one, the enemy has enough time to commit London upon your forehead. You can't use this gun without almost guaranteeing you'll trade damage. Even the Rivet Gun doesn't suffer from this. So yeah, this gun isn't inherently bad, it's just its damage methods are absolutely terrible, and the stupid vacuum cleaner noise doesn't help. Number 9, the Flamethrower. Man, this gun is worthless in Zealot. I mean, seriously, it really is. This thing cannot kill anything without stasis. The only reason it's above the previous two is that lingering fire damage does eventually kill the target, and it has some application as a crowd control weapon for the pack if you hate the force gun for some reason. On big targets, it's a mess. I will say turning the fire from yellow to blue on max upgrade is actually really freaking cool, so glamour points for that. Plus, there is something inherently maniacal about setting a death zombie on fire and watching him melt into pieces. Stops them from playing dead too, you know, for the 5 people that actually fall for that. Plus, these things can the ass of a banana. What the fuck is this script? Look, I still have a small attachment to this gun just for being so fun to play on easy difficulty. It's the only gun in the game that kills enemies with time itself, other than waiting 45 years for the line gun's nuke to go off. As such, I do still like this weapon quite a lot, but god, it's just useless at Zealot difficulty. Sorry, buddy. Number 8, this fucking thing. Honestly, you're lucky you even got this high, buddy. You're technically better than the Flamethrower, technically, so you get to be in 8th spot. You still suck. God, I despise this shitehouse weapon. Everyone seems to love it, but I just can't tell why. Its bomb, although powerful, is completely worthless for run and gun tactics. Its primary fire, even when maxed out, still takes 2 to 3 shots to kill anything enhanced, which given how slow this gun is, makes it bloody unbearable to use. Honestly, ignore this thing's primary fire and just use it as a mini nuke launcher. When you manage to upgrade the mine delay, it only takes over a second to explode, which makes it just more bearable than the 6 weeks it takes at base. If you want a proper rant on just how much I hate this weapon, watch the original video. I'm not going to pad the runtime whinging about this thing anymore. 0 out of 10 gun, very garbage, does less DPS than the Rivet Gun somehow. Number 7, the Seeker Rifle. Little Snooper. Nothing really wrong with this gun at all. I love it to bits. It's just a tad simple compared to the rest of the guns on the list. Not many places outside of space where you'd actually need to zoom in a weapon, although I do appreciate the effort to make a sniper rifle. The fact its hit scan makes some people prefer it over the javelin gun is just nowhere near as powerful. It is a good gun to practice hitting limbs off with though, because if you can hit an arm with this thing, you can definitely snipe it off with a plasma cutter. Plus I use the zoom functions to get a better view of some of the environmental details like drawings or writing on the walls. Overall a simple gun, but definitely not worthless in Zealot with its high rate of fire and total damage later on. Plus it bodies the vomiters, which are notorious for surviving amputation over and over. Anything that doesn't require limb damage but in fact takes body damage, this thing's good for. It's just there aren't many enemies that work like that. Good job, Sniper. Very epic. Number 6, the Detonator. The Detonator is basically a lifesaver for new players. It might not always kill whatever it hits, although it mostly does, but this thing means literally nothing can sneak up on you. This gun has your back, plus the DLC ones can be used for an infinite money glitch. Just cheese the hardcore to victory, I say. The primary fire throws a grenade that sticks to a surface and produces a beam, which just mega slices anything that comes into contact with it. In a pinch, you can also just fire the canister into the enemy. It does less damage, but it still works if you're out of ammo for your other guns. This is one gun I wouldn't recommend keeping with you solo. It's a backup weapon through and through, but it's a really good one. Early players use it to cover their backs, and pros use it to camp the spawns of any necromorphs they don't want to fight, or any exploders that might one-shot them if they spawn wrong. It's a unique backup weapon in the automatic trap sense. It's good for permadeath runs, as there's no way anything stealth kills you with this around. Plus, listen to the secondary fire, it's so cute. Nah, little beep boop bomb, it's okay, I'll protect you. Number 5, the Javelin Gun. I still can't aim this thing for shit, but it's miles less clunky than this mess. The Javelin Gun hits like an absolute freight train with its main fire, and its secondary deals with groups surprisingly well. Its ammo is rather cheap too, which is always nice. I do admit I was very harsh on this weapon the last time I spoke about it, simply because it wasn't hit scan and I was a small bean who didn't understand how projectiles work. I mean, I still don't, but I'm sure people who can actually aim love this thing. Plus, this gun has by far the greatest secondary upgrade in the game, adding a literal explosion to the secondary's lightning charge, which hits about as hard as a pulse rifle grenade, if not harder. It's basically just a slower, more powerful version of the Seeker rifle, and I can see why so many speedrunners use this thing, as its time to kill is just glorious. Number 4, the Contact Beam. If the Javelin Gun hits like a train, the Contact Beam hits like a Boeing 747. This thing can 5-shot the final boss with literally 0 upgrades, and its ammo sells for a ton of money, so even those who don't use it keep it around in their inventory to sell the ammo drops for big cash. I will say though, this gun's secondary isn't that useful. Having it stasis people at max upgrade definitely makes it better, but I'd rather use the charge on nuking whatever it is that's near me as opposed to lightly annoying it. This is the one gun that I actually like in the remake. The secondary beam it has is really cool and much better than whatever this is. This gun starts slow, but honestly, the gun starts overpowered. Seriously, its base stats should be its final upgrade stats. Also, shout out to that one optical build I made around this gun in Warframe that got like 1,000,000 base damage. That was awesome. God, I miss Warframe. Very nice cannon, 10 out of 10. Number 3, the Plasma Cutter. I'm sure the third probably surprises a lot of people. This gun is iconic for a very good reason. Not to mention Dead Space 2 is by far the best iteration of the gun. It's sharp, fast, and extremely consistent. 2 rounds take off an arm, fire the arm into the head, and boom, dead zombino. This gun sounds like paper in the remake though. It's sort of derpy in the first game and would almost be as good as this in 3 if the enemies weren't aids. Its final upgrade of adding fire damage is a little disappointing as it doesn't do much, but considering most guns don't get a final upgrade, I'll take what I can get. I appreciate the effort anyway. There's every reason this gun should be the best, and I'll be comparing all 3 of these last guns to each other directly to explain why I chose them over this. The Plasma Cutter tickles my OCD like no other, and it just handles so well, but it's not nearly as powerful as number 2, the Pulse Rifle. The Minigun is exactly what it says on the tin. 25 rounds of this thing cost almost as much as one contact round sells for, meaning you can get about 1,000 rounds in your inventory easily, and it doesn't take up that much space. This is the gun I use the most, and that seems pretty consistent with other people I've seen playing this game. It's just too good, man. Holy shit. Almost 200 rounds, and each hits so hard. I think it takes like 3 shots to take off a limb. That's the same amount as the fucking line gun. And if you miss those rounds, you have like 170 more. You could take out half the sprawl without even having to reload this thing. Not to mention it's so fast that reloading takes like 2 seconds, if that. Its secondary grenade is beautiful. It's exactly what a minigun needs, a fucking noob tube. It's not as powerful as the line gun bomb, obviously, but more than powerful enough to 2-shot almost everything and can be fired over and over again. It takes 25 rounds to fire one of these grenades, but with how cheap the rounds are, it's super worth it. Plus, it doesn't ever really damage Isaac unless you fire it mega point blank, and even then it never kills you, so it's not a terrible risk considering the chances it obliterates your enemies. I put this higher than the Plasma Cutter because of its amazing secondary and war power. Not to mention its amazing firing style just feels so good, each barrel firing independently. In the remake, it's useless and it broke my damn heart. All 3 barrels fire the same. It's just nowhere near as good in the remake, man. I'm so upset. With this gun though, I don't know how EarthGov lost any of their fights with these bad boys in their arsenal. The Pulse Rifle is by far the most versatile and effective weapon in Dead Space 2, but it's not my favorite. Number 1. the Force Gun. This gun is glorious. I'm sure literally no one will agree with me putting this gun first, better than putting the Flamethrower joint first. What was I thinking? The Plasma Cutter and Pulse Rifle are fantastic, but you see, neither of them make you completely immune to zombie hugs. You don't even have to aim the Force Gun, just point and shoot somewhere in the general direction of where an enemy might be, and you'll end up sending half the country of Spain into orbit. The zombies do have to be close to you for the primary to work, but considering most of their primary attack methods consist of stab, it's gonna happen pretty often. Plus, as soon as they get within the Force Gun's active range, that thing gets sent straight to Chaos Realm. They're gone. No, seriously, they're gone. The secondary attack is more powerful and has more range at the cost of having a smaller arc. And the noise it makes when fully upgraded just sounds so cool. I love it. In my eyes, this gun is absolutely built to be paired with the Pulse Rifle. The Pulse Rifle deals with anything far away, and this thing annihilates anything that gets closer than that. In my hardcore and zealot speedruns, I use the Pulse and Force guns as they keep me alive much more consistently than any other. I won't deny the usefulness and reliability of the Plasma Cutter, but the Pulse Rifle's grenade secondary simply puts it on top, and the Force gun is just a beauty to use. It's basically an air-powered shotgun. You might disagree with me, but I've loved this gun for years, so it is most certainly my favorite. Number 0. Jeff. The Jeff gun is pretty good. I normally use it to fire at the Karens. Karens don't seem to like him very much. So that's the list, lads. I stream Dead Space 2 on Twitch and YouTube quite a lot now, as well as VR games. Shame there's no Dead Space VR, that would be amazing. Also, I have a public Discord now. Link for that will be in the description, or like a comment or something. I hope this list was a little less stupid than the last one. I wouldn't bet on it though. I did make that last list literally years ago when I was a small creb who didn't even know what the Force Gun was. If you have your own favorites, least favorites, or even an entire ranking list of the Dead Space guns, feel free to let me know in the comments. It was interesting to see just how many line gun fans there were last video. I don't know why there are so many fans of this garbage. Who knows, maybe this time the Flamethrower stands will arrive with their fucking easy difficulty settings. That's all from me. I'll see you all in this masterpiece coming in 2 weeks, maybe, if I can keep a schedule. I don't know, just look out for it sometimes in the next 5 years. Should be done by then. Ciao.